Yeah, here we go, the aces. Do you min 3-bet?
Yeah. So let me tell you some really deep in-depth strategy in poker. Sometimes a very genius player called Charlie Carrel of 5077 has really fat fingers and thumbs and accidentally misclicks from the big blinds. This is not one of those times, but I'm protecting those times. I probably do this with like a 5% frequency, but every now and again I'll just min 3-bet aces to keep them
To
keep
balance
them on
your
their toes.
misclicks?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm. This is where I will heavily disagree on because you're not forcing him to do any mistake. Like basically every hand he has, and if you have, even if you know you have aces, like he has to call. He's priced in, right? So we're not forcing him to do any mistakes. And whenever we choose a strategy where opponent can never do a mistake by calling his entire range, it's never a good strategy, in my opinion.
I really disagree with that. I really, really disagree because I think that when you make somebody, let's say it's on the river and you're min betting the river, knowing that you have the best hand pretty much always, and they call, they're like, well, it's not a mistake because I know that I'm getting the right price with this. And let's say you do it on the flop, or pre-flop in this kind of situation, you're perhaps not making them make a mistake on this street, but you can make them make mistakes on other streets. So I really don't agree with the presupposition that just because they're not making a mistake on that, in like theoretically from a game theory perspective, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad play from our perspective. Now that I'm not saying it's definitely a good play, it's still a min 3-bet with aces. I'm not, saying it's like the.
It's not a negative EV play, but we make more EV with 3-betting larger, and this is where I would say it's a mistake because you could 3-bet even 3x or 3.5x. They're still going to be calling a lot, and we increase our EV significantly. And this is just you can create the ranges. And I also recently made a YouTube video, guys, if you want to check it out, where I was looking a little bit more into the EVs of doing certain actions. And this is where we are going to be making significantly more EV with. And one of the reasons is, and if you that's why I just tried to explain it from human logic, is if this guy has ace 4 off, he cannot fold. Even if he knows that you have aces for the most part and you have a few misclicks, he has a position advantage and he will sometimes hit his trips and then have implied outs. And this is where what I mean with he's not doing a mistake by calling Willy wide. And then this, in my opinion, is then another good strategy if we allow him to call Willy wide. Of course, if he's a terrible player and he's going to be doing a lot of mistakes post flop. Yeah, but then he's probably also going to do a lot of mistakes if we 3-bet 3x or 3.5x or even 4x, and he's still going to be doing mistakes against that strategy as well. But we punish him even more. And this is what I'm not saying the min 3-bet is like losing money or we're not going to make any EV, of course, because it's aces and we're going to have the best hand for the most part post-up as well, and we're going to win more money. But I just say we push even more EV, we're going to make even more money by just choosing a larger sizing. This is where I'm 100% sure every single time 3-betting larger is going to make us more EV. This is just a line I would never take.
So personally, I'm going to push back against this pretty hard. Again, I'm not suggesting that people should put this into the game, but to say that you're 100% sure that it's higher EV to 3-bet larger, I think is really misplaced confidence based on how complex the game of poker is. You never know whether the field is, or this specific player is going to react by 4-bet bluffing a ton in this spot. You never know whether he's just going to stack off on an ace high board if he has an ace in his hand, which is rare. You never know what kind of reaction you're going to be getting from these kind of spots. And if he is just going to assume we have aces, then, well, okay, suddenly we've just got a ridiculously profitable 3-bet with ace 10 suited, hands like that. So I don't think it's fair to say, and again, this is like, it feels like I'm kind of like sticking up for a joke because this is kind of like a joke hand, but I don't think it's fair to say that you can be that certain that you know how people are going to react against this. So just because you're not making a theoretically sound play, it doesn't mean that you're going to be reducing the EV of your play. And this is not something I've played around with enough to have any idea. This is more of genuinely just balancing. But at the same time, there are a ton of plays that I would make that other players would say that's so theoretically unsound, it has no chance of being profitable. And it's stuff that's just made me a ton of money throughout my career, like the min betting on the river, for instance. So I really would push back against the level of certainty there.
Well, but we also need to have a certain amount of. Well, then we could go ahead and say, then let's open 7 deuce off from MP. The game of poker is so complex. What makes us certain that opening 7 deuce off from MP is not a profitable play either? That's
Yeah,
where.
no, I understand. I understand the argument, and if you took it to an extreme, then you could propose it to be ridiculous. But I don't believe that this is anywhere near the extreme. Like, we have data on opening 7 deuce off from mid position. We have data from opening a bunch of hands from mid position. We know that it's no bueno. We know that we can't make it profitable because we also can't make a ton of other hands profitable, like, I don't know, ace 5 off, for instance. But we don't have a ton of data on this.
I could provide you with data that would probably convince you that ACES min 3 betting is going to make us.
Can you provide me with like 10,000 hands where somebody's min 3 bet from the big blinds, and then compare it to 10,000 hands where they've 3.5?
We could run simulations where we would give in a proper input of, let's say, the way the hand is supposed to be played post flop. They use
how would you get that input? How would you get the input of how they?
You can run these with Monka solvers where this is basically how you create preflop ranges, or look in preflop EVs where the solver assumes a certain output for post flop and then estimates the preflop EV of our actions with 3 betting. Again, this is no problem. And you would.
So what you're saying is that you know how to put in an input of how this person will react.
I mean, Charlie, this is no, you cannot do this. But then why would you be able to do that with ace 5 off? We can also then assume, okay, people are going to be playing terrible, and then we're not capable of doing the same for pre-flop open raising ranges when our opponents we cannot consider how they play post flop and we make a ton of money. Then we need to question all our pre-flop ranges.
No, I honestly don't believe that's true. I think that there are a ton of things that we know aren't going to work because people have tried and tested it. There are a ton of things. Like, I got this play off a very, very high stakes player back when I first started watching. And I got a bunch of different fake misclick plays that they did. And it's made me a ton of money throughout my career. Now, I'm not saying that this is definitely going to be higher EV, but I'm saying that you don't know. And this isn't something that we can put into a computer and test. This isn't something that we can be certain about. So the level of certainty that proliferates throughout the poker community about this is definitely bad because theory, I think in some positions is completely well-founded. I think in other positions, in other spots, it's completely misfounded. And I'm arguing that this is one of those spots where it's misfounded.
Well, I would see some truth in it if it's against the recreational, where you might induce something and he does something ridiculous. But Bomba Granata, he's a very experienced high stakes player for many years. He's going to be like, oh, thanks for the great prize. I don't do anything wrong just by calling my 9-8 suited. I'm not losing any EV. It's a good price. I can call, see a flop, and then take it from there and play a hit or fold. And that's not a good strategy for us as the out of position player. So I could argue the same. I could say, okay, do you have data that regulars are punting? Again, if you say, okay, based on experience, you think you make more EV, I can't argue with that. I really can't argue with that. And then you're going to be right for your own style of playing. All I can say is that, and I literally made 1 or 2 weeks ago, I made a video. Of course, it doesn't consider people doing heavy mistakes, but we're playing a 5K and we're also going to be facing some very experienced regulars. And this is a strategy I would not take because I don't know if my opponent is reacting properly to min 3 bets. Something I'm not doing. If you're experienced in that and you did it and you consider that your opponents are doing such crucial mistakes with that strategy, that's the reason why you choose a min 3 bet strategy, then I can't argue with that. Like, then I have to trust you that you make the best decisions for yourself. This is a style I would simply not play because
and again, this isn't a style that I would usually play either. Like I said, this is something that I would argue is if you did it more than every 20 tournaments, people would start playing against you in such a perfect way that it would just be insane.
Yeah.
But I've played a bunch of hands like this where people just 4-bet folds. They take some random hands, like absolutely loads of hands, and they just end up 4-bet folding a lot. And I have enough data of these kind of spots where intuitively I've gauged that, hey, this is actually working out pretty legit. I'm not burning money by doing this, so I'm going to continue doing this. And so I really appreciate that you've started speaking about how it is for your game instead of how it is for, like, you know, the theory in general, or how people are going to be reacting against it. But personally, I've just had loads of good spots happen from this, and I can't say that it would work in the long run if I kept doing it, but it's led to some really, really nice situations where people have just punted.
Then let's continue for the flop. Queen 3 deuce. You'll go ahead and choose a larger sizing.
Yeah. I think that in this spot, you're either representing a bluff. You're either representing a misclick or you're representing aces. And I think that if somebody just has a queen here or they have pocket eights, they're probably just going to pocket eights will probably just call one, and they'll probably just resort back to near GTO.
Yeah.
And then queen X, I'm just going to try and stack by the river.
If you're enjoying the way that I'm speaking about poker, teaching poker, I do have a website, charliecarrel.com. Link is in the description below. You'll find on there a mindset masterclass, which I think is the most important, teaching you how to deal with tilt, anxieties, ambition, things like that. You'll find a poker masterclass completely teaching you how to restructure the way that you think about poker. And you'll find a complete archive of the bankroll challenge.